On today's show, Lauri Markkanen and Brandon Ingram, where are they going to go? We don't know. But where should they go? We'll tell you on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are Locked On to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show. We're making Locked On NBA your first listen today, with the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform. Go to YouTube, like the video on YouTube, subscribe. We just hit 14,000 subscribers on Locked On NBA YouTube. Appreciate that. Let us know in the comment section, where should Lauri Markkanen go? Where should Brandon Ingram go? Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And joining me, as always, on a Thursday, I know where Lauri Markkanen came from. Host of the Locked On Bulls. What you got for me, PatTheDesigner?
He's still 1K away. That's an insider joke. Everybody doesn't get it. But
No.
make your own joke there.
Context clues will give you that one.
Make your own joke there.
We'll talk about where Brandon Ingram should go. We'll talk about some of the destinations. We'll each pick like an off-the-wall destination that we haven't really heard yet. So we'll talk about that. Of course, we'll play Count It Up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including the greatest dunk of NBA Summer League history. How should you respond to that dunk? We'll do that. But let's start here. Lauri Markkanen has been connected to the Golden State Warriors. We've heard a bunch of rumors about it. We've heard about the offer that was made of, Moses Moody and a bunch of picks to get Lauri Markkanen. We've heard the rebuttal. We've heard the rebuttal from the Jazz. Hey, no, we won't just take Moses Moody. We'll take him as well, but we'll also take Podziemski. We'll take Jonathan Kuminga and all that. Let's just start with Lauri Markkanen himself and the Warriors. Does that move you at all? Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Lauri Markkanen, and some dudes. Does that move you?
You know what? It actually does for me, because Lauri Markkanen's a player. Now, here's the part that scares me a little bit about it. It's the health concerns, right? That's always my thing with Lauri Markkanen. I've always said Lauri Markkanen, to me, with the Bulls, wasn't a failed project. He was a player that could average 18 points a game. Lauri Markkanen just couldn't stay on the floor. And at the end of the day, your best ability is availability. But if we're just talking about the talent of the player, the skill set of the player, Lauri Markkanen is a big man that can shoot. And he can shoot it really, really well. And I think that the Warriors would understand that listen, there's a difference between a shooting big man and a big man that can shoot. Lauri Markkanen isn't somebody that I want standing out at the three-point line all day just knocking down threes. I think he gives them something that maybe they were looking for in James Wiseman a little bit, and it never really materialized, but something that a guy who can consistently run the floor, a guy who can play above the rim, who can knock down the three ball, be in on stretching the floor, but also if you need him to give you that back to the basket, little drag step that he developed when he was here in Chicago, he can do that. If you need him to give you a little bit of that float game, he can do that. You need him to show some vision and facilitate a little bit, he can do that. He's got all of the tools, and pairing that up with Stephen Curry, like, listen, I'm not saying it's one of those moves that all of a sudden makes Steph go from you've got 5 more years in the league to like, yo, maybe he could play till he's 45. But to me, it is one of those moves that keeps the Warriors. How we talked about them is like they didn't get worse this offseason, but they didn't get better. This is a move that would make the Warriors better. It would make me look at them a little bit different if Lauri could stay healthy.
Yeah, we're kind of putting the Warriors in that category of like, all right, they're kind of there with the Clippers, kind of there with the Lakers, teams that like didn't really get better, but
yeah,
you know, the Clippers definitely got worse. But in general, you're like, all right, you're just kind of in that same spot. The end of the playoff, teams probably in the play-in, or at least a couple of those teams will be in the play-in. But yeah, Lauri Markkanen brings them somebody else that can score. Like I was listening to Locked On Warriors with Chuck Walter, and he was like, when Steph sits, who scores on this team? And you're like, oh my God, it's Wiggins.
Yeah, now.
It's Kuminga. They had this problem last year, but at least they had Chris Paul, they had Klay Thompson, they had at least some guys you could set some stuff up for. But yeah, it moves me a little. I don't know that I put them back in like they're back to the top. It's Minnesota, it's OKC, and it's the Warriors. Like I'm not doing that with them, but it puts them back in that mix with Dallas, with Denver, with those teams that are on that next tier there for sure. And I got to see Draymond Green next year, and it would be interesting to see that duo, Draymond and Lauri Markkanen, as a front court duo, because I don't know how they would play that out, but it could work. So, but
Lauri would avoid getting punched at least.
Would he?
Well, you never know. I think he'd be fine.
A non-Warriors team though that could trade for Lauri Markkanen. I got one. We haven't heard this name.
Give it to me. The team, not never.
Victor Wembanyama is going to need a front court partner.
Oh.
Can you imagine the spacing? They can honestly just trade Keldon Johnson's salary. They got Atlanta picks. They have their own picks. They could cash in a couple of those, get Lauri Markkanen, bring him over. He's what? He just turned 27, so he's still got some time left for sure. He's an incredible shooter. You pair him next to Wembanyama, and all of a sudden that front court is nasty when it comes to spacing the floor. I mean, all this, like Chris Paul would just be walking through the lane at that point.
Listen, that's not a bad team. That's a phenomenal pull. I had looked at the Spurs. I think my thing with the Spurs, though, is the players that they can send back. Does that pique the interest of what the Jazz want to do? That was really my thing, right? I guess if you're going all in, you send back a Devin Vassell. That's a solid piece, right? Keldon Johnson.
Yeah, but the Spurs aren't giving that. That's the problem. The Spurs aren't giving that up. But yeah, Keldon Johnson, he's not that interesting of a player, but just give him one of the Atlanta picks. Hey, guys, would you like to have the Atlanta Hawks pick for next year? Would you like to control their draft? And then maybe they get more out of Atlanta to give those picks back. Like there's all kinds of like transaction game here, but just the player going to the team, I think I like that. I wish Markkanen was a little younger to fit the timeline, but he's 27, right? He'll have 5 more years, and that's the run of his contract. And then, we'll see what happens with Wemby then. And the whole NBA be different by then. He'll be making $100 million in his career.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's not a bad name. It'd be interesting to see the fact that Chris Paul is there, right? We talked about the extension of a career for a guy like Stephen Curry. Could that be something that even would help Chris Paul to extend his career further? I don't know if he gets a ring out of that, right? Like I think at this point he's just playing for the love of the game out here. But could that be something that extends Chris Paul's career to the point where you see the ball movement, you see the dominance, you see how he's going to be able to come off of a pick and roll with either one of those guys and be able to just throw it up there and say, go get it. You talk about the spacing on the floor. If you can get it done without giving up Devin Vassell, you've got a really nice roster there.
Very nice. Yeah. Who's your team?
My team is a team that is not at the bottom, does have players to give, and is in a little bit of contention. And I think it would be really fun to watch the duo.
Uh-oh.
Let me see the Denver Nuggets get in on this.
What? How?
Let me see the Denver Nuggets get in on this. Now,
how does this even work?
You're going to have to move some pieces around, right? Of course, there's some of the smaller pieces on the team that you'd probably have to give up, but I think they're players that more so that you could actually have a team that has players that are interesting to the Jazz, which is the tough part about the Spurs, right? Like you're just trying to give up Keldon Johnson and call it a day and hope that like the Jazz just turn their back on it. But listen, you're going to have to re-sign Lauri Markkanen anyway long-term. Maybe you get a deal done early in this thing. I mean, like, how attached is Michael Porter Jr. to the future of that team? Is he the biggest piece? Jamal Murray and Jokic are the 2 biggest pieces. Could you see Lauri Markkanen being that level of contributor where you say, and I love MPJ, but could you see Lauri Markkanen being that level of contributor where you say, listen, Larry, you're making some good money right now, about 18. How about we give you a pay raise and we make a little swap there? Or you give some of the younger pieces up that maybe are a little bit more interesting there, right? You got Christian Braun on that team already, right? You pair that up with maybe a Deron Holmes or something like that, right? There's a lot of young pieces on that team as well, where they're not making a ton of money, but maybe are more intriguing, and you've got the draft capital on top of that. They've got their all their picks in 2026. Their first round pick in 2028. I think that will be more enticing.
They don't control their picks. That's the problem.
That's true. That is true.
They have their own. It's top 5 protected, but it goes to Orlando if not settled over the next 2 years. Then OKC they owe 1 2. So I don't think they owe those picks. That's the problem. One of the problems with all these trades is how can you trade one of these players to one of these teams? But yeah, if they did a Porter Jr., Christian Braun, like you mess up your depth even more if you're the Denver Nuggets. I don't know if they can do that again, but yeah, I would kind of want to see it.
That little Jokic and Lowry action.
I would like to see it. I can't imagine how that would work. There's no way.
For everybody who's sitting here going, these trades make absolutely no sense. He started these off by saying off the wall trades, guys.
We did go off the wall. It's very true. I did ask him to go off the wall.
It was very off the wall here.
My other ideas was the Magic. Magic got some picks, and Magic got some young guys they could send, and that could be your spacer. And the Hawks was my other idea.
Yeah. Hey, just send him back to the Bulls. You know what I mean? Maybe you send him back to the Bulls. We got to lightly use Zach LaVine for you. You know what I'm saying?
Coming up, let's send Brandon Ingram somewhere. We haven't really heard him connected anywhere, but where should he go? We'll talk about that and more coming up.
Count it up.
Oh, yeah?
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account. You can go anywhere, do anything this summer. Go have some fun. Go have like an adventure. Go see a live concert, some comedy or something like that. They have MLB tickets that you can, if you have an MLB team near where you live, all kinds of stuff. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. You can even, sometimes I live in Dallas and I drive to Arlington to go to Dallas Wings games. On the way there, I will buy the tickets. I will buy the tickets because you get the 60% off last minute. So the prices go down as you get closer to the deal. They also have the all-in pricing. You can toggle the feature to show the price up front so you know exactly what you're going to pay at the end. I love that. The seat views, it's awesome too. Am I going to get an obstructed view? What am I going to get at the seat? So download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA. Be it every day or listening every day, we have a daily Locked On show that covers your team. Check the link in the description to find a show that covers your team every day. Locked On Bulls, covered by Pat the Designer, Hayes. Locked On Mavs, covered by me and some friends. All kinds of stuff like that. All right, Pat, we talked about Lauri Markkanen, destinations, off-the-wall destinations for Lauri Markkanen. Yours was so off the wall that I still can't get over it. Brandon Ingram, where could he go? We haven't even really heard him connected to somewhere. We just think that he's not going to go back to the Pelicans because I don't know that they want to re-sign him. And so the first one that came to mind, all right, a team that would want to pay Brandon Ingram, that it makes sense, where he could expand his game maybe a little bit more, fits what they want to do, and has something that the Pelicans would want back. There's a player up in the Pacific Northwest who makes $2 million less than Brandon Ingram right now. Fills a need for the Pelicans. The Portland Trailblazers send DeAndre Ayton to New Orleans. They can send picks. They can send a couple young guys because you got that $2 million difference. And you make it up for it, and boom, you got DeAndre Ayton in New Orleans, and that's their center. Because right now, I asked Jake Madison, Locked On Pelicans, I said, who starts at center right now? The season starts right now. And he goes, it's probably Daniel Tice.
Oh. Yeah, it's not a great spot to be in.
No.
It's not a phenomenal spot to be in if you're the New Orleans Pelicans. That would be an interesting one, though. Like, Ayton, to me, I think that there's a lot of questions out there, but you know that at a minimum, he is going to give you that consistent 18 and 8 kind of play, right? And that's not something that you can't match in poorly there. I think at this point, if he still thinks he's the number one option on a team, like, you didn't show it at all when you were like literally the only option on a team. So like that dream should be sold at this point. But him coming in, being that third guy like he was when he was in Phoenix, like, yeah, give us that guy back, accept that role, stop sitting there and pouting about being the third option on a team, and go out there and win some games. I wouldn't be mad at seeing that combination there. The tough part, I think the toughest part about that is, wouldn't you love to see that team with Brandon Ingram on it? Like, I think that's the part that is
with Ayton as the center.
With Ayton as the center, like, that's the part where it's like, it's not a bad move, but it's like, man, seeing the other version of that team would be phenomenal.
But you have DeJounte Murray now, and so maybe that's a pick and roll partnership that would work better than what they had before in there. You've also seen DeAndre Ayton start on a team that went to the finals, so we know that he can play in the playoffs, and that's important as well. The Ayton Zion Williamson fit, like, you just wish you could get a stretch 5 for him, because that's a tough fit, but
it's a lot of paint.
They need a center somewhere.
Not
enough paint.
Not enough paint. There's never enough paint for Zion Williamson. Oh God! Shout out to Zion, man.
Sherman Williams doesn't have enough paint.
And porn stars.
Sherwin Williams doesn't have enough paint. Is that what you just said? My team right now is not trying to move past that. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna be a little bit selfish here.
Okay.
I got multiple players on the Bulls that I can send to you if you need one. You need a center?
You want Brandon Ingram?
I'll take Brandon Ingram. You know why? Because Brandon Ingram owned the last year of his deal, right?
Yeah.
You've got a young team that you're trying to figure out some answers for. And Brandon Ingram could be that piece where maybe he is an answer. Maybe he is somebody who can be consistent. At a minimum, right? Brandon Ingram as a scorer, I'm not asking you to be 30 points a game at this point in your career. The Kevin Durant dreams to me are gone, right? Like I remember everybody was like, he's like Kevin Durant light. And I was like, very light. Like how light did we get here? Yeah. So
he's as light as Kevin Durant.
He's as light as Kevin Durant. KD might actually be heavier, bro. Unless you were
he's
talking
like 4 inches taller, probably.
Unless you were talking about, never mind.
Hey, yo.
But the thing for me, you need a center down in New Orleans. I got a center for you. He's a little bit older, but I guarantee you he'll be consistent. And that pick and roll will be very interesting. He will play very minimal pick and roll defense, though. How about Nikola Vucevic down to New Orleans? Nikola Vucevic,
no.
though.
That's a potential stretch 5, like a theoretical stretch 5.
It's in theory, there's some stretch there, and he does, play the 5.
What's the old Jalen Rose thing? He's a stretch mark 5.
He's a stretch. I don't know about that. Vooch in pretty good shape. I'm not gonna call him a stretch mark 5, but it is not great as far as the stretch 5, but it's better than DeAndre Ayton. The other name for me, though, and I think this is an interesting one because of everything that has gone around him, is obviously Zach LaVine. The reason for this is Zach LaVine does make a little bit more, but listen, at this point, the Bulls will take anything. Brandon Ingram coming in to the Chicago Bulls, right? Talk about the pros and cons of that. But Zach LaVine on the Pelicans, him and DeJounte Murray have been friends who have been playing together for a while, especially in the off seasons. They have a very close relationship. Zach LaVine, here's the thing about Zach. He's not a bad player. No, if you hear a member of Chicago media going, this guy's a terrible basketball player, that's an idiot, right? Let's be real about it. Zach LaVine is not a bad basketball player. But Zach LaVine is unhappy. He's in a situation. We've seen this throughout the years of the NBA, right? When a player is unhappy, you don't get the same level of play. You don't get the same level of commitment. And that's why you see, right, Zach LaVine take the voluntary surgery last year. If you get Zach LaVine down in New Orleans, you pair him up with DeJounte Murray, I think that you return the joy into Zach LaVine. You allow him to play with a guy like CJ, who's right, still have some talent there as well. And if you get a healthy season out of Zion Williamson, that's not a bad team to pair up together.
Yeah, the Zach LaVine one is breaking my brain. Like DeJounte, CJ, and Zach LaVine. It's like that's like a 2K team that somebody put together.
And there's only one person playing defense. DeJounte Murray's
Herb.
Like, I can't guard them all.
No, DeJounte's not. He'd be Herb Jones. He'd just be guarding. He'd be guarding everybody.
Herb, block that shot, Herb. Hey, we need you to block that shot, Herb. Hey, Herb, can you block that shot right there?
Not on Herb. Not on her. Another sneaky one is the Jazz, but for Kessler.
Yeah, you got to pay Kessler though. You got to pay Kessler though. You gonna give Kessler $30+ million already?
Is it? I mean, you can send multiple players back.
I was gonna say. Well, you said just for Kessler. I'm like, you got to send somebody more than Kessler.
Okay, Kessler and John Collins.
That's not a bad. That's not a bad. Pickup. I'd be intrigued by that.
I'm just saying a package built around him.
Are we thinking too hard on this?
Uh-oh.
Do we take the first topic and trade it with the second topic? Do you do a Markkanen Walker Kessler trade for Brandon Ingram? Hold on, that's a team right there. Hold on now.
That would give you the stretch 5 kind of with Lauri a little bit.
That's a team right there, dog.
The Pelicans would have to send more stuff back.
For Lauri and Kessler?
Is Markkanen is more for?
No, Markkanen's only making what, 21 million?
Asset wise, they'd have to send more.
Well, yeah, of course, you'd have to send draft capital. For
okay,
sure.
Pelicans can have two first round picks they can trade.
Yeah. You'd have to send
3.
Draft
they have
capital
3 actually.
Sure. But you're getting a young team. I mean, I guess if health concerns are a problem with Brandon Ingram as well. So you're trading 1 for 1 there, but you're hoping. But Lauri's been able to play a little bit more than Ingram. That's not a bad team there.
Did you say go Lauri and Kessler? You trade
Lauri and Kessler
both of them because I think they actually have 4 picks. I keep counting. They have a Lakers pick. They have a Milwaukee swap. They have another Milwaukee pick. They got a bunch of picks I think that they could trade. So, yeah, you do Ingram for Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler. So you start Kessler, Zion, and Lauri Markkanen. That works.
That's a big
DeJounte
lineup.
Murray, and is it you probably do Herb instead of CJ?
Or Herb, either one.
Yeah,
but it makes up for It makes up for the fact that DeJounte, a little bit smaller.
And then the Jazz get back Brandon Ingram, who they can flip later if they want. They get probably get some firsts back.
I think we just found our answer. I think we worked way too hard on the first two topics, and the answer was just trade 1 for 1 right there.
Well, 1 for 1 plus more stuff. Yeah,
plus a little more. Yeah.
Let us know in the comment section on YouTube. Where do you want Lauri Markkanen to go? Where do you want Brandon Ingram to go? Coming up, where we count on the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including what do you get sick about? Talk about that coming up.
Excuse me.
Count it up.
I forgot about the chimes. It's Counted Up, where we count on the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. We get to some of the topics. We're going to talk about Summer League. We'll talk about all kinds of stuff. It's
Big Chicken, baby. Zion Williams and porn star.
Take that for that. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up.
today, President Joe Biden.
Oh, no.
No,
last time we had a president on this show, it didn't end well.
No, he did Obama last time. Joe Biden, his official account just tweeted, "I'm sick" today, and that's it. Just the words "I'm sick." My question is, in the NBA right now, what makes you sick?
Oh,
I got my answer if you need a minute.
In the NBA right now, what makes me sick is the fact that people believe that if you can't shoot threes, there's no way that you can ever play a sport where the goal is to put the ball in the bucket.
Listen, Javon Carter is not making a comeback this year.
Oh, dog. Hey, listen. Who? Oh, you talking about Leroy?
Leroy and his jumpsuit.
You talking about Leroy Carter? With his cigarette and his jumpsuit? He fixed carburetors. He fixed carburetors out on 92nd. Yeah, Leroy. I know Leroy.
What makes me sick in the NBA right now, I was sitting there, I was watching Summer League, minding my own business. And I cover the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah.
I have invested interest in them doing well. I went to every finals game. I sat there game 5 as the Boston Celtics won the title, as the confetti rained down and landed on my head as I was doing my post-game podcast as sadly as I could. And I was sitting there tonight and I saw the championship merch commercial come on TV.
Oh,
makes me sick.
You a little sick.
If your team has ever lost a title and you have to watch the championship merch commercial, it's the worst.
You know something, Nick? I haven't been in many titles, but I've never watched my team lose a title.
Rex Grossman, you've watched a team lose a title.
I was talking NBA, my boy. I was talking NBA. Listen, we're not going other sports. We're not going other sports.
Don't White Sox.
The White Sox won the title they went to. They also won all the playoff games anyone's ever seen over the last 100 years in the same season. Listen. The Blackhawks went. Every time the Blackhawks got to a Stanley Cup, got the job done. Except in the 90s. I guess we didn't in the 90s. There was that. Yeah, I didn't count that. I didn't really watch that.
Miami Heat Summer Leaguer Alondes Williams dropped the dunk of the summer over AJ Lawson today in the Summer League game against the Dallas Mavericks. Absolutely cocked it back and nailed it right over AJ Lawson. My question is, if you were between a guy like Alondes Williams in the basket, do you just jump with him and take it, or do you have to step out of the way? Do you make the business decision? What should AJ Lawson have done there?
Dog, listen, that whole question was a pause, bro. Talk about he cocked back and gave it to him. It's like, do you stand there and take it? What?
Listen. How do you think I write these questions?
Dog, what is happening?
I know my audience.
Yeah, you know what? This is a tough one because in my mind, right, you make a business decision, you get the heck out of the way. You don't want to be on that poster. You don't want to be on the poster, right? First off, he had no shot. Here's my thing. If you have no chance at blocking it, don't get in the way, right? Like
he had no chance once Adonis Williams, though, like brought it all the way back, like as far back as I've ever seen a dunk go back. And you're like, okay, there's no way he can reach from where he is. He's going to miss this. And he just didn't because he kept going up higher.
Listen, I understand all of that, but like you gotta know you do the jump up and like pass by as like he goes past you. You don't put yourself body to body in that situation. But here's the flip side of this. This is Summer League. If you don't body to body, you probably don't have a job. You know what I mean? Like, there's some coach that probably was like, hey, son, I love the effort. You shouldn't have been there, right? Like, that's the coaching moment there. I love the effort. You shouldn't have been there. You know what I mean? Like,
Chet Holmgren was recently on Richard Jefferson's podcast, Road Tripping, and they started talking about Sam Presti. And Chet really loves Sam Presti.
That boy is on a different
level.
He's on a different level of like consciousness. When you talk to him, he's just like,
that's why I said I was.
You only know if you have a conversation with him, but when you do, it's just like this motherfucker. So like he's ahead of where I am. Like I'm just like, I don't even think or worry about what he's doing. I'm like, he's gonna get this right.
Yeah.
Let me get my right. You know what I'm saying? I got a long ways to go.
Right there.
Let me sit the fuck down and get my
This dude
right.
is 32 years old.
I don't know who he's talking about there because Presti's 46.
yeah, I was like, is it just the face? Is he 32?
I don't know who he's talking about 32. My question is, how high was Chet during this interview?
Dog, listen. I'm glad it wasn't just me because I was sitting there like, yo, like, did he have the Eddie before this? Like,
This is just on another stream of consciousness, man. Like, just
bro, like, yeah, it felt very. Yeah, rest in peace. It felt very Bill Walton-ish right there, didn't it? It felt felt a little Bill Walton-ish right there.
We're out there in the dunes of the sand of the desert. Sam Presti is leading us to victory in the charge. Also, if you're Sam Presti, do you listen to that and go, maybe I can offer him less than his max and he just won't notice?
To me, if I'm Sam Presti and I hear Chet Holmgren talk about me like that, I'm asking him, why hasn't he invited me over? You know what I mean? Like, I need to get in on the bowl as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was, listen,
Presti's on another level. He's probably got better stuff.
Bro, I haven't heard that much love for a coach in a while, bro. Like, that was GM. The last time I heard that, I mean, the GM, yeah. Last time I heard that was when Pat Beverly was trying to hype up Billy Donovan. You know what I mean? Like, that's the last time I heard somebody praise a coach like that. Shout out Pat Bev.
My last one, Team USA dominated Serbia today, won by almost 30. Yeah. Joel Embiid continues to struggle. The international refs are not falling for Joel Embiid in any of his grifting or any of the other Team USA's foul grifting. My question is, should the NBA just turn a blind eye to foul grifting like these FIBA, these international refs are, to fix the problem in the NBA? Because they literally don't, they just look away. There should be a foul and they just don't call it.
It's tough because I want a foul to be called a foul.
That's the problem.
I'm not one of those people that's like, you know, I want the 90s back where it was just like, you know, an elbow to somebody's eyeball and it's like, I mean, listen, he's not dead, so I can't call a flagrant on it. Yeah, I mean, like it got a little excessive. But what I would like to see back is kind of what we had, let's say in like that 2005 to 2009-10 era, where you were getting foul calls, players were getting foul calls. I mean, right, we still got the complaints on LeBron all the time, but you weren't getting like every time somebody moved, I got to call a foul on this, or guys are just getting killed and everybody's looking away. So you got to find that happy medium in the NBA. I think they're slowly working their way back, and I like how the league has done it over the past few years because, I mean, remember, like, it went from James Harden being at the free throw line, like 42 times a game, basically, and he's averaging 38 points a game, to like all of a sudden they slowly were like, no, we're not giving you those calls. We're not giving you the rip through. We're not. And I think they're just trying to condition the players to like, okay, these are the things that we're not going to call this season. And if you try to get us to call them, we're going to call a flop on that. We're right. Like, I like how the NBA is doing it, slowly working it back, because if you do it too quickly, I think it'll be too tough for players to adjust to.
And the Board of Governors did uphold the in-game flopping penalty. Remember, we had it managed nobly back then, and then they kind of like stopped doing it for a while, and we were like, why did they stop? And then they brought it back last year, and then they are now going to keep it as a permanent penalty now. So the flopping will, I think it helped a little bit. Luka flopped a little less last year.
I think it's tough though, because here's the thing: stars are going to get star calls, and I think that's the part that people.
They just can't be hunting them every time down the floor. It's just not a good product. That's my
thing, right? Like to me with Jordan, right? Jordan got star calls. I know it. I saw them, right? Like it was like, all right, I'll take it. Like Jordan would get a call as he's like dunking on some dude who's clearly outside the paint, but he basically jumped over him, and they're like, I'm not calling that on Michael. You're on a poster, son. You know what I mean? No. Those calls are going to happen. But I feel like you said, back in the 90s, early 2000s, it wasn't the sole thing that players were looking for. Players were looking more for the basket. And then if you get the basket and you get the foul call, bet. But I want the basket. And that's kind of where you got to get the star mentality back to.
Let us know in the comment section if you think the NBA should turn a blind eye to the foul grifting and just ignore it like the international refs are. Let us know what you think about Lauri Markkanen and Brandon Ingram on the YouTube. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA. Go listen to Locked On Mavs. Go listen to Locked On Bulls. And we'll be back tomorrow with Adam Mares and Wes Goldberg.
Bye-bye.